mid-70s to late 70s, 75, 76, 77, I was reading some music publications, and in those days they looked like newspapers. They were printed on newsprint, and they weren't like magazines, glossy magazines. They looked pretty much like a newspaper. And there was, if I can remember, there was 3 of these regular publications. There was the New Musical Express, there was Sounds, and there was the Melody Maker. So the New Musical Express, Sounds, and Melody Maker, and they each had a readership which suited the nature of the publication. So they were market segmented, where they were going for a certain type. And these publications, I think, came out weekly, and so that was just shows you how much of a draw they had to be able to publish something like that each week. And they were A3, I think, A3 in size. Not like a magazine tends to be roughly about A4. These were twice that size, A3. Similar to something like the Daily Mirror at the time, or Daily Record, a kind of A3 type of publication, printed probably on the same type of printing press, which is called a web press, as against a litho press. A web press is for very long runs, hundreds of thousands. And each publication had a certain tone. So the Melody Maker itself was more business, quite a bit more business-like. The Melody Maker was serious, often in tone, and it was the type of forum where serious musicians would exchange ideas, and often in the classified adverts in the Melody Maker, that was the beginning of some fantastic relationships, and bands formed simply by advertising for a bass player or a vocalist, guitar player. They would put little adverts in there, and people like Led Zeppelin may have formed simply by bunging a few adverts in there, looking for extra band members or replacements for people who had left. So it was that serious. Some of the probably the most well-known combos were formed by people placing adverts in the Melody Maker. They might have done that when they recruited perhaps Phil Collins as a drummer for Genesis. They might have put an advert into some of the Melody Maker. So the Melody Maker was a serious music publication. At the other end of the spectrum was the New Musical Express, and it was an irreverent publication, but I'll come back to that, and we'll talk about the middle ground. The Sounds magazine or Sounds publication was in between the Melody Maker and New Musical Express in tone. The Sounds was quite a lot of jokes in there, a lot of what you might call puerile humour or prurient sometimes, and it's pretty jokey, aimed at probably people between the ages of about 15 to 20 years old, and but it's a lot of good journalism in there, and the sounds was moderate in its approach. As Oscar Wilde said, everything in moderation, including moderation. So it sounds more straight-laced, quite a bit jokey, but the New Musical Express, the best way I could describe it, it would be a bit like a YouTube comments section today. It was more akin to what we now call the internet. That's where people in the New Musical Express often were just talking a lot of daft stuff, and it was an irreverent type of magazine which had some pretty good journalism, but it used to be quite wild and pretty daft. And in the New Musical Express, it was almost a bit like Private Eye. In some ways it was a bit of a satire as well as a music publication, and they had a letters column where readers would write in. The New Musical Express had this letters column, and this was pretty much equivalent to the comment section in YouTube, something like that, or Twitter or Facebook. So this is where people get a chance to write in and give some feedback or opinion. There was no other way to do it in those days, so people would have to go to the trouble of writing a letter and posting it. And they called this readers' letters type of page, a couple of pages, they called it gas bag, as in gas balloon, gas bag. And it meant people could just mouth off and talk a lot of garbage. Sometimes their points were valid, and other people might comment on the other person's letter from last week and all that type of thing. And such was the irreverence of the NME, New Musical Express, that it used to have theme weeks where it would change the name of the letters column, and they would change it from they wouldn't call it gas bag, they'd call it something else, prefix it with something, and then call it something bag, and run it some sort of theme. And just to show you how tasteless it could sometimes be, they once produced a theme week and they called it Hindenburg. So rather than Hindenburg, which would be the balloon that went on fire in tragic situation and crashed to the ground, they called this letters column Hindenburg, and it had a big picture of this balloon coming down and bursting into flames, and that was the theme. And they also had in the New Musical Express, they had a Lonely Hearts page where people would advertise for a partner, and this tended to be basically lots of blokes, adolescent blokes trying to pick up a girlfriend. And you used to read through these small classified adverts were just a few lines, and you got charged per word. I think you might have even been charged per letter. So this meant people started to come up with abbreviations as to what they were trying to say, but they had to say it in as few letters as possible and a few words, otherwise their word count would go up and it would cost them more money. So I was pretty young and wasn't quite au fait with the ways of the world. And I used to read these classified adverts, and they say something like, some bloke would say, I am John, I'm a nice guy, and I like to go out for walks, and I like to listen to music, and I'm looking for a girlfriend, but looks are immaterial. It's all about personality, and I just want to share things, and I'm looking for a girl to share things with. And it would always be fairly simple, nothing eloquent or elaborate, because it would put your word count up. But as I was looking through these classified adverts, something kept coming up which was concerning me. The people always sounded quite authentic and reasonable. Maybe just shy people, and thought this is maybe a way of contacting someone. But like the equivalent of a dating site you would get these days. This was what it was all about. And so I'd been reading through the classified adverts, and there was all these kind of wholesome requests. Guys just saying, I'm a normal guy, I'm looking for a normal girl. But every third or fourth or fifth classified ad, it would say this, that, and whatever, and this is what I'm after. But the girl must be into S and G, which is like Sierra, Golf, S and G. And the advert would always look quite reasonable. And then it would say blah 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 blah, and then it would end and say, must be into S and G. And I thought, whoa, I don't know what that is, but it sounds very dodgy. And I could see it each week. Young men were advertising to try and pick up a girlfriend, and they would be setting out their stall as to their attributes and what they were looking for, and then in it was dropped, must be into S and G. And I thought, I know this publication's a bit off the wall, but this is dodgy, because there's an awful lot of people who are doing this thing, this S and G thing. It sounds unsavoury to me. And I would see it each week and they go, well, here they go again. Blah 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 blah, must be into S and G. So, and then it clicked what it was. It was innocent. What they meant was, must be into Simon and Garfunkel. They were just pointing out their music taste. But if you said Simon and Garfunkel, it used up so many letters, it would double the price of your advert. So they used to say, I'm into S and G. And then when you think what it was, it's actually Simon and Garfunkel. It was their music taste.